So I am up there. Welcome everyone. Firstly, I just want to thank the Council, because I think what the Council have initiated here is absolutely magnificent. I mean, the energy and the positive feeling that I'm getting out of this is superb. I get a sense that in Christchurch the mood is changing from grieving and after the tragedy. I think there's a sense now we're all starting to look forward, and there's a bit of optimism and positivity coming through, which is really exciting. And looking through, having a quick walk through the panels here and looking at the post-it notes and the thoughts people have scribbled on here, it's interesting to see there's a lot of common themes coming through, and very similar to a lot of what our speakers have said as well, which is great to see. You know, low-rise city, green, perhaps less cars, pedestrian-friendly, cycleways, all those things. It's brilliant. I even saw one post-it note up there where I think it was under the section that says, "What do you want to see more of in your city?" Someone had put up pork chops. It's good we've still got our sense of humour. Okay. See if this works. All right. I'm going to be sort of bold enough to actually show some drawings and some plans to see. Although, as I said here, certainly there's it's not a definitive plan in any way, but I just want to put some thoughts out there. That's why I called my talk Thoughts for the Future of Christchurch's CBD. It's too early to do anything definitive, of course, because a lot of this goes without saying. We still need a full analysis of the issues that occurred after the quake. We need to understand the liquefaction risk in our city, and the Tonkin and Taylor report, I think, is still due out end of this month. Final extent of damage, I think that's quite critical to understand literally what our city's going to be like once the dust has settled. Community views, which is happening now, we need to understand those. Business and commercial needs, cultural and arts issues, etc. There's a whole lot of things that still need to occur before we can do anything remotely definitive for what the city will actually, how it will actually redevelop. But we can still talk, I believe, about principles. We can talk about ideas, thoughts, sort of stimulating views on what might actually happen. So that's what I want to look at today and actually show you some potential ideas. Of course, a lot of this stuff goes without saying. We want to aim high. We want to rebuild Christchurch as best as we possibly can, using best available knowledge, experience and creative talent. There's plenty of it in this city, and informed, of course, by the views of all Canterbury residents. Okay. You've seen this shot a few times, I think, by some other speakers who've had a similar views. That's an aerial view of Christchurch. I think it's 2 or 3 days after the quake. It's quite a dramatic shot. Unfortunately, you probably can't see with the resolution of it, but you can zoom in and literally see the piles of rubble. We've heard some stories of how much of that city is eventually going to be cleared away. 900 is a figure that was in the paper recently. 50% is something Hugh actually mentioned just a few minutes ago as his feel in the elbow. So 50% of the buildings here, it's actually quite hard to get your head around how significant that is. There's even been talk at times of maybe we should build a CBD somewhere different, and maybe this isn't the right place to put the centre of Christchurch. I think my feeling is that that's wrong. I think the CBD should stay where it is. I believe we have the ability to build safely in this place. Some of the very recent buildings have stood up perfectly well with today's knowledge and earthquake codes. I think we have the ability to build in this environment. But I think more importantly is the bones of the city are still there. The key strategic areas that make up what makes a great city still actually exist. And of course we still have our centres. Cathedral Square is still there. We have a cathedral in the middle, which I'm sure will be rebuilt one way or another. So we still have the heart of our city. We have a cultural area, the cultural precinct as it's often called. The art gallery is fine, as Hugh said. The art centre, although it's had some damage, is all eminently repairable. Museum is still there, Botanic Gardens. we've still got all these marvellous parts of the city that we all love and know. The civic area, for want of a better word, the town hall, the law courts, convention centre. Even though I understand there's quite a bit of damage in the town hall, I've never heard anyone say we're going to demolish it, and I certainly hope we don't. So around Victoria Square, so we still have our civic centre. Retail area, although retail area has been severely damaged, as you all know, our anchor tenant is fine, Valentine's, essentially the linchpin to our retail zone in Christchurch. And there's a strong desire, as I'm sure you've all heard, for Valentine's to be up and running before November. In fact, the whole city mall, they want to be up by the end of October, I believe. So it's still there, the will is still there. The hospital had some damage, but the hospital is still up and running. We still have our medical services in the city. Natural features, the natural features are still there. We've got Hagley Park, we've got the Avon River, we've got the squares, Latimer and Cranmer. We have our infrastructure network, the street grid is still there, and essentially all the services that run up and down it. As you can see, this picture is building up to say what is still remaining after all the damage is cleared away. This is residential areas, existing residential areas. There's damage in here, but I think fundamentally people are still going to live in these sort of zones. This is all very broad brush, of course, blobs. Education, we still have a thriving education area, precinct, for want of a better word, around CPIT, which CPIT has had quite limited damage, so it's still there and it'll still act as a catalyst for things to happen around it. Which is really the lesson that I think this picture shows, is that we have enough left in the city to still make our city great again. The bones are there. There's no need to actually move out of this area. And I think what will also naturally happen is around these sort of nodes and precincts, that's where a lot of the rebuilding will tend to focus, just almost by natural means. People, the retail area will want to congregate around Valentine's, for example. Educational things. We've already had, as one minor example, Strategy Group, which was in the paper a few weeks ago, I think was partly responsible for the branding of this. They've gone into the old pub on the corner of Morehouse and Madras because they want to be close to CPIT. So you can see the start of how the city will develop. It'll start from these nodes that exist, and that's where we'll see all our energy. And I believe that's where the energy should be directed as well. We don't want to disperse and build all over the place. So this is a bit of just a fun diagram. It doesn't really mean too much. Just saying, well, maybe areas between these nodes, and this is by no means a plan, could actually be greened in some way, because there's going to be a lot of empty sites. So maybe for it, we do some temporary green parks, greenways, which will develop between these nodes while we concentrate our rebuilding in these key precincts. This plan is not really a plan, but it needs a lot of work to develop up, because there might be all sorts of things that come out of the analysis that will make this happen. For instance, there's talk of some of the old waterways that I think there's something in the paper recently. I'll show you a picture in a minute. Talk about maybe some of the old waterways. It's not so sensible to build on them anymore because of the liquefaction risk. So maybe they end up being green corridors. There might be areas of severe liquefaction which could turn into parks. All sorts of ideas are possible. This is a drawing, once again, that was in the paper. This is courtesy of Di Lucas of Lucas Associates. Let me use this image. It's essentially the 1850 plan of Christchurch. There's pictures of it around the walls here as well. But it's fascinating to look back at what the original idea of Christchurch Central City was. And that was that it was supposed to be bounded by this green belt. Only going out, I think it's Salisbury, Barbados and St Asaph. And what that does is it tends to mean that you focus the built form into quite a circumscribed area. And the nice thing about that is it tends to encourage density and intensity. It means you're building in an area and you get all that urban grain and activity happening within a defined zone. And that zone can be done by greenery, and we've got an opportunity to do that now. I thought I'd throw this one up as well. This is This was done by the landscape architects after the September quake. You can see there, January, they produced this. They had a design charrette. And this was done totally independently of the 1850 plan I've just shown, but essentially exactly the same idea. You can see the green, I should use this pointer. You can see the green belt going around the central city. So it means you focus your building activity in the heart, and you have this lovely green areas around the city. So you get the two combined. Basically a reflection of the 1850 idea of the city. So what it does is it means that you can... Sorry, I jumped too ahead. Just a reminder of what Christchurch used to be. I mean, this is a magnificent little photo of corner of Hereford and Colombo, looking from the square back towards the hills. And what I like about this picture is just that hustle and bustle, you know, all the people crossing, the cars, the trams, just the activity, the things that make a city exciting and a place you want to be. Also, interestingly, you know, that's all 2, 3, 4-storey buildings, which is what a lot of people are talking about now. Naturally, we wouldn't build like this anymore. We wouldn't build masonry buildings made out of brick and parapets that can fall over. But I think the scale is good, and I think we can do something similar, because what we want is this. I think David Sims spoke very eloquently about how exciting cities are when we're all close together, and you can walk to cafes, you can walk to shops, you can go to the library, go to the art gallery, you bump into people on the street, you can promenade up and down areas. It's really what makes, and the only way we can get that is through density and being close up. I'm not suggesting for a moment Christchurch is Manhattan, but all I'm saying is that this is probably the most urbanised place in the world, so it's an extreme example of what I'm talking about. And interestingly, this perhaps counterintuitive, Manhattan for a Western city is one of the most sustainable and green places in terms of energy efficiency in the world per capita, because people don't have cars, very few cars, people use public transport. You walk down to your shop, you go to the gallery, you can live your whole lives within this actual small area. So it's actually green, density is actually a green solution too, but the magic of New York, I think, is Central Park. And as you can see here, you've got that amazing urban density, but then you've got this incredible oasis of Central Park, this green zone within the city which you can escape to. And I think those two elements are really what makes a city, and that's what we could do in Christchurch.